Hey folks, I don't know if you all know the story about the king named Bimbisara, who was a big supporter of the Buddha during his lifetime. Um, Became a practitioner, and it is said they used to do levels back then. He attained the level of stream entrant, and under the Buddha, supposedly, and he built the first retreat centers for the Buddhist order so that they'd have a place to go during the rainy season and be able to practice when they couldn't easily be out, on their normal walkabouts and sitting in the forest and such, so they'd have some shelter. So um, at the end of the Buddha's life, uh, Bimbisara's son overthrew the king, and some stories say he imprisoned him. He imprisoned his father, and the father killed himself. And some stories say that the son just killed him. Anyway, he usurped the throne, and which would have been, we could imagine, quite upsetting to the Buddha. And then he decided he was going to invade the Shakya Republic, which was the Buddha's homeland. So he raised an army, the son of Bimbisara, and it is said that the army was headed down the road towards the Shakya Republic, and the Buddha sat in the road in meditation. And when the army saw him, they couldn't bear to pass, so they turned back. But as you might expect, they came back again, and the Buddha was again sitting in the road in meditation posture, and the army turned back. And then, as you might imagine, they came a third time, and Buddha was sitting in the road, and they turned back. After that, the Buddha saw that it was not going to stop, so he stepped aside, and they went and invaded his kingdom. Now, I'm not a scholar, so I don't know all the history of this, but one can imagine that, non-attachment would have been difficult to practice at a time like that for the Buddha, right? He's for one thing, the throne's been usurped. His friend and student has been overthrown by his own son, and then has the nerve to invade his republic. I've been thinking about this story because I feel we're somewhat in that position of the Buddha at that time. With everything that's going on in the world and our country, I knew I was going to give this talk, and I had plans for it, and then I'm not going to go into the politics in detail or anything, but let's just say we're living in dangerous times, and it appears to get more dangerous day by day. And I was really feeling the danger of that yesterday. And I'd already planned to share some practices that would, I hope, be useful to us in these times. But then I caught a cold, and then my mind woke me up at 6 a.m. thinking about all these events and about the Buddha sitting in the road, and just made me feel like I had to more directly address the oncoming armies while we're sitting there. Do you ever feel that way? Yeah. Yeah, these are truly dangerous times, and thank God for our practice. Um, thank the Tao, thank the Way for our practice. I don't know what I would do without it. I do know that if we allow ourselves to be thrown off our center, destabilized, or thrown into panic, or thrown into despair, then we've lost the battle already. They've already won. Not that it's exactly a battle, but um, metaphorically speaking. So we have the means whereby we can actually do this, where we can actually hold our ground. And we also have this wisdom of being able to not know. Because if there's ever a time in my lifetime where I didn't know, in the large sense, not personally, but when I look at the world and society, oh boy, is this it, right? I want to leave some time at the end so you all have a chance to, we have a chance to discuss this. But um, yeah, we just don't know, and we have to sit with that, don't we? And we're not going to figure it out from up here, are we? Uh, if we're fortunate and we keep our center and we keep our ground and we keep practicing, when a moment arises where we have to do something, perhaps we will know what that is. But I think at this point, everything, it just feels like it's up in the air in the world, and when in doubt, just make sure your own boat is stable, right? And then you're in good shape to take others on board. So that's what we're going to work on today. So I want to do guided meditation, which is not something we do frequently in Zen, but this is a particular, I want to share a way of dealing with our own internal feelings, anxieties, upsets, fears, whatever's there. Um, and combine that with a traditional metta practice, which I'm sure many of you have done before, loving kindness practice. So, and we'll have a chance to talk afterwards. So let's just take a few minutes to just settle back into our zazen, back into our breath. But in this case, I would ask that we, rather than centering our attention low in our abdomen, can we feel the breath coming in, going from the heart area? Just for a minute or two to settle back in. Just feeling the breath coming, going from somewhere near the center of the chest, heart. Not the physical heart, but the energy center heart. So, in the universe at large, creation and destruction are happening all the time, aren't they? And the universe doesn't seem to mind which one is going on at a given moment. Well, probably in any given moment, both are going on in many places. As human beings, of course, we like creation better than destruction. But in the large view, what we're talking about is just exchange of energy. Energy can change from one form to another. But as human beings, in our practice, and also in this glorious mechanism of our hearts, we sometimes don't realize that things are operating the same way. It's our discriminating mind that judges certain internal energies as good or bad, right? Based on whether we like them or not. So we tend to feel energies like anxiety, for instance, as negative, and we tend to resist them. Or we might feel sorrow or pain at the world as negatives, and therefore we tend to resist them. And that's natural, that's human. But our practice is really about accepting all these energies, right? And the heart, in particular, has this kind of miraculous ability to turn energies we might think of as negative, to accept these energies and let them turn into something positive. So, to begin this practice together, as we're breathing from our hearts, from that region of the body, using our introspective awareness, can we look within ourselves and I'd be pretty sure that it wouldn't be that hard to find some moderate, uncomfortable emotion or tension somewhere within us. Something that we might ordinarily resist. Let's not choose, if you got a big stack of them, let's not choose the hardest one, the deepest, darkest one. Let's choose one that we think, I could work with this. Maybe a mild, free-floating anxiety or something. Some just sort of discomfort. You know, it's funny, emotions are largely physical, so it can be difficult to differentiate between attention in the body and in a place that's held emotionally, or sometimes they're almost the same thing. And if we find just such a place, we're going to work with it a little bit. Because after all, we've probably all noticed we can't get away from our feelings anyway, even though we'd like to. So since we can't avoid them, get away from them, I think we all know we can't stuff them down, repress them, ignore them. Why not allow this marvelous capacity of the heart instead to just welcome them as energy? And the heart has this remarkable capacity to receive any energy and to distribute it outward as love. Compassion is what we call it mostly in Zen practice. This capacity of the heart to take suffering and to lighten it and even transform it. So this is something like Tonglen practice for those of you who have encountered that Tibetan practice of Tonglen. But the way it's done by Tibetan monks is a whole different thing. And in fact, some would call this the wrong way to do it, to work with our own suffering. In the Tibetan tradition, they imagine breathing the suffering of the whole world into their heart, and as though it were a dark cloud, and allowing it to kind of turn in the heart and be breathed out in the form of lightness, clarity, brightness, joy, happiness, love, compassion. That's kind of a tall order at the moment. And I wouldn't recommend taking all the problems of the world on unless you happen to be living in a Tibetan monastery and can be guided through a whole process with this. But we can certainly work with our own feelings. And they also can benefit from this transformative capacity of the heart. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, on the inhale, imagine that tension or feeling we've located that we would rather avoid. On the inhale, that we breathe it into the heart. Imagine it coming into the heart along with the air, but I don't even want to say imagine. See if you can feel it being accepted by the heart. And if it's helpful, you can image it for yourself. Traditional ways, as though it was a dark, heavy cloud. Can you imagine just that sensation that's been bound up within you coming into the heart as that dark, heavy cloud? But the heart has this capacity to turn it, and when we exhale, it turns into lightness, brightness, a different form of energy. Just like in the greater universe, energy is never lost, right? It's transformed from one form to another. So within us, in our hearts, we can do the same thing. We breathe in that tight, held, resistant place. On the exhale, we just give it away as love, as compassion, as positivity, as happiness. However you see it. It's traditional to picture it being breathed out as golden or white light, something like that. Being breathed in as dark, dense, heavy clouds, and being breathed out. You can take it a bit at a time. Can you just allow a bite-sized bit of that held place or held feeling inside come into the heart on an inhale? The exhale's naturally the side of the breath that triggers the relaxation response anyway. So on the exhale, we just release, let go. The body settles. The mind tends to settle. The emotions tend to settle. In this case, the emotions flow out from the heart as positivity, and we just give that positivity away. I think we all know that when we give compassion, love, positivity away, it refills from within. The more we give away, the more it refills. And these trapped energies emotions, tensions that we really prefer not to feel, since they're unavoidable anyway as humans. Why not allow them to transform themselves and be given away? So let's just try this silently for a few minutes. Allowing our awareness to go to some place within where we feel that bound up energy of emotion or tension. And in the trust that it will transform and be released, can we be willing to unconditionally accept that feeling, or whatever bit of that feeling we can take in a bite-sized bit into our heart? Inhaling it in, feeling that heavier, dark energy, and exhaling. Can you feel that release? It's best to give it away 100%. Sometimes we want to hold on to like the last 5%. Once it's turned into love, we want to keep some of it. But that's not the way this works. We give it all away and it refills. Let's just try it for a few minutes silently, and I'll add a little bit more guidance in after a few minutes. Any discomfort, any tension will do. See if you can feel the whole body settle and notice the pleasant sensation of that settling on the exhale, that release. It will deepen if we just notice it and allow ourselves to appreciate it. Breathing in what is dark and heavy with full acceptance, giving away what is bright and light with full release. It's like a swinging door. Opens this way and then it opens that way. Everything can pass through, unhindered. If you wish, this practice combines well with some of the traditional loving-kindness metta phrases. So on the exhale, if it feels right to you, you can silently send the wish, may all beings be happy. With the exhale, may all beings be well, healthy, or strong. May all be safe, protected from harm. May all be at ease. I like to add in, may all beings be free from suffering. That's part of another similar Brahma-vihara practice, the compassion practice. That's done in the same way as metta, but they're often added together. May all be happy, may all be content if you prefer, or may all know joy if you prefer. You can use your own language. May all beings be healthy, well, strong. May all beings be safe, protected from harm. This can include ecosystems, environments, mountains, rivers, oceans, creatures of the air, and creatures of the waters. May all live at ease. May all be free from suffering. If you wish to add any other positive phrase of your own, you're free to invent one. I sometimes add forgiveness. May all forgive and be forgiven. I sometimes add, may all beings know complete liberation of heart, mind, body, spirit. May all know love is another phrase I often add. As we continue for a few minutes longer in this way, just see if you can allow that relaxation, giving away, letting go on the exhale to just continue to deepen simply by appreciating it. simply by noticing the letting go is rejuvenating, nourishing. Perhaps we might feel a little weight being lifted. A little extra we've been carrying around. If you run out of emotions, you can just look for physical holding places in the body. The same principle applies. Often emotions are hiding there anyway. We're not trying to get rid of them. We're trying to give them away as positivity, release, unwind, transform, and give out. If you're using the loving kindness phrases, metta phrases, you can also choose to direct them to some particular place or individual or issue, environment, anything that calls to you. Do a few more minutes and then we'll have a chance to talk about this. There's no end to compassion. It's limitless, boundless. We all have as much of it as we need. we just allow ourselves to release it, give it away. You may wish in our last couple minutes of practicing to let the attention settle down more deeply into the body, into the belly, into the hara, the dantian area, just to finish with a sense of centering and grounding. I'll leave it to you if that feels appropriate to your practice. Okay, now as we feel ready, you can begin to move a little, maybe wiggle fingers and toes or stretch. Lift the eyes or open them if they've been closed, and we'll have a chance to talk about this a little bit.
Sensei, I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that practice. I was noticing it was hard for me to see how the dark, heavy energy shifted into the light, bright energy. And I wonder if you could say a bit more about how that transformation happens in the heart.
Mm. Yeah, you might need to practice a little more to begin to feel that happening, but energy is just energy. So that's why I began talking about the universe at large, right? The universe doesn't divvy up. We like this energy, we don't like this, you know? Um, we divvy up positive and negative by whether we like it or not, right? Um, or whether, we feel pain from it. It's a matter of suffering sometimes, but nonetheless, the universe doesn't seem to look at it that way, does it? Things bounce off each other, things crash into each other, things get destroyed, the energy gets exchanged, things get created. It's all happening. We're the ones who say, "Oh, I like this energy. I don't like this one. I'd rather keep this one. I don't like that one." Energy is just energy. That's the way to hold it. Could you feel it at all at times? that release and transformation and giving away.
Yeah, when you said to just accept it, that's um, when I felt it really.
That's the first part of it. When we accept it, we're accepting it as best we can as limited human beings. We're accepting it as though uh, it was neither good nor bad, right? Just energy. I accept you. Now I give you away. I bet this would be a good practice for you, Corey. I bet it would
Yeah,
be a good practice to work with. Yeah. And
yeah,
we'll have other chances to talk, no doubt, about how it evolves for you. You know, we all carry around these tensions, these unresolved binds of emotion, energy, tension to some degree. And since we can't get away from them anyway, why not accept them? That's actually, accepting what arises is basic to our practice, isn't it? Yeah, would anyone else just like to share or share anything about? I mean, obviously, my way into doing this was because um, we're getting these blows to the heart, a lot of us. And it's very helpful to have a way to work with them.
I'll say a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
My insight meditation teacher in the 90s, Barbara, taught us Tonglen meditation, and I've done it a lot over the years. And I find it very, very helpful in dealing with kind of relating to suffering, my own suffering, but also suffering in the world. And when you're breathing in, I mean, it's a visualization practice. And so at first, you don't have, you can just almost artificially visualize it until the emotions and your body engages with it. But when you imagine breathing in the suffering in the world, or somebody's specific suffering, and then collecting as a dark energy around your heart, then at that point I feel like I'm experiencing the suffering of somebody else, and I'm sharing it. I mean, it's compassion, right? Compassion means feeling along with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then just imagining it transforming to light and sending it back to them as light. At first, it can just be imagining, but eventually something happens, something is
Take it till
shifting.
you make it, right? Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
that.
take it to make it, yeah. And there really is this transformation of fear and darkness into light and comfort. And so I really feel like I'm a pump, sort of, a pump helping out um, helping to transform suffering. We talk about transforming suffering. Here's an odd little story with this. When I was on a retreat years ago, and I was out walking during a walking period or a break. It was winter or early spring, and I found a baby bird just sitting on the driveway. It was going to freeze to death. Little baby bird. So I picked it up and I put it in my pocket, in my hand, but it was, I put my hand in my pocket with the bird in there, and I started doing this Tonglen practice with the bird, and So I breathe in its fear and confusion, and then breathe back out the light. And after about, I don't know, 10 minutes, when I would breathe the light to this little chick, he would chirp.
Mm.
I breathe, you know, fear and cold and confusion. What happened to my nest? What happened to my mama? And breathe it out. Everything's okay. Chirp.
Oh.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. After we took it inside and they took it to a bird rescue place, but that was like amazing to me. What the heck?
You know, I have a not dissimilar story. I had a student in my meditation class at the university, and we don't do we don't get as far into this isn't exactly Tonglen. It's it's a variation on it, but I don't really get into that at the university. But we do loving kindness metta practice, and the student was driving. We live at 7,000 feet, and she was driving up to the ski valley, which is adjacent to Taos, which I think is about 9,000 feet. And she had her dog with her, an elderly dog, but the dog was, generally in decent shape. And she was taking the dog up there to go for a walk. But as she started to climb up an elevation, the dog started to pant and breathe heavily, and there was obviously having trouble with its breathing. Something with the elevation was affecting it, and it got more and more labored in its breathing, and she got alarmed, pulled over to the side of the road. She had the dog in the back of a hatchback. She ran back around and opened it up, and by the time she opened it up, the dog wasn't breathing at all. And of course, she's sobbing and crying and wondering what's going on. And she lifted the dog up and just sat down on a rock with holding the dog, like at her wit's end. And it suddenly came to her, why don't I do metta for my dog? And so she started saying, may you be happy, may you be well, within her, meditating, sending metta to the dog. Dog started breathing again, got up, walked around. It was fine. Quite a story, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe it would have happened anyway, but it's kind of remarkable. That rather than totally freaking out, rushing, down to the animal hospital, or, at 90 miles an hour and trying to get there. Sit with the dog, send it love, compassion. And it started breathing.
Well,
Would anyone else like to share anything? You can also share if it didn't work. You can share if you hated it. I didn't like metta the first time I tried it. I thought, it was in my early 20s, and I think I just thought it was sentimental and just not cool, But that didn't last.